Kobe Bryant and Shaquille O'Neal. 8 seasons, 8 playoff appearances, 435 total wins, 4 finals appearances, 3 NBA championships, 2 60-win seasons. 2 outstanding performers, both in the regular season and playoffs. 2 Hall of Famers, 1 unstoppable duo. These 2 were nothing short of spectacular greatness on the court, with arguably the most dominant player in NBA history and the next coming of Jordan that at the time was looking legit. They were appearing unstoppable to the common eye. They were on top of the league and it looked like no one was stopping them. That was until drama. Woo! Who would have thought it'd be drama separating such an unstoppable dynasty? But maybe. What if bringing them apart was the best thing that happened to this franchise, and for their own sake? What if I told you deciding not to amend their feuds is what created the leeway for Kobe to take control of the Lakers and place the Lakers franchise in the best possible situation moving forward? It might sound as simple as that, but there are plenty of layers to it. Hey everyone, DC NBA Junkie here, and today we're taking a look at such a controversial decision that might have actually benefited the Lakers down the line. Let's get to it. But before I begin, make sure to leave a like on the video and drop down in the comments section any suggestions for future video ideas or even ideas for future series, because any suggestions from you guys are highly advised and recommended. And lastly, make sure to subscribe. I mean, we're all here for some fresh and nice NBA content. Let me provide some context to the eventual split up between Kobe and Shaq. In 1996, we see Kobe and Shaq were brought to LA. And then 1998, we get rumors of jealousy and some accusations from Shaq towards Kobe. And then let's go up to 2001, where the feud is openly out when Shaq comes into camp out of shape and Kobe addresses it immediately. And we also see some issues in play styles between the two, as Kobe wants to play more around the team and Shaq still wants the ball to run through him in the post. And then in 2003, when after their three-peat from the 2000 to 2002, we see them lose and their title streak ends. In the summer, Shaq states that the full team is here and wants to be healthy for this team, but he proceeds to not mention Kobe. And then we move forward, and then Shaq encourages Kobe also to look elsewhere in the offseason, and he does so through criticizing Kobe's play style, stating that the arrival of Malone and Payton were for Shaq and not Kobe, and stating that he wasn't going to leave. We also start to see Kobe disappointed in Shaq for not being there during his legal troubles that he has in 2004, and even following the 2004 season where they lose in the Western Conference playoffs to the San Antonio Spurs, that their feud is at the brink of eruption, where statements are made across each other, and even Phil Jackson decides to leave the team. And Shaq later demands a trade for the team, where he is sent to the Miami Heat in exchange for Lamar Odom to the Lakers, and Kobe even signs an extension with Los Angeles. It was certainly a disappointing ending, but it was possibly best considering the situation for a few reasons. First off, you gotta look at Shaq's remainder of his career. He would only average 20 points per game and 10 rebounds for 2 more seasons after leaving the Lakers, which, although he did win a finals in 2006 with the Heat. But the biggest concern with keeping Shaq and Kobe together in terms of his remainder of his career is that he deteriorated so quickly. And I'm not saying that that would have happened, or I'm not saying that wouldn't have happened if he would have been in, if he would have stayed in Los Angeles. However, just kind of considering how the course of his career went, his contract would have made him harder to deal with, because he would have most likely signed a long-term deal with the Lakers. You know, being 31, he would have wanted to make sure he could have signed a long-term contract extension, and whether Kobe was there or not there, if Shaq signed there, just signing long-term creates issues for the front office, considering that if Shaq is not playing up to standard for them, it's hard to trade him when he's making so much money, and furthermore, trading him to the point where it's going to be actually beneficial for the team and getting valuable assets back. And we don't even know how it would affected Kobe, and maybe even prompted Kobe to ask for a trade. Secondly, you have to look into Kobe's superstar future. In the fact that the Black Mamba was posting outstanding scoring seasons at only 25 years old in 04, when the feud between him and Shaq just got to a point where it was unsalvageable. And keeping them together would have undoubtedly, I believe, created the situation where Kobe would have wanted to demand a trade from the team, stating that he believes very confidently that he can lead his own team, and if he can't do it in Los Angeles, then he's going to do it elsewhere. And that's something I really feel like Kobe is passionate about, just winning, but also being one of the focal points when winning. That was the difference between him and Shaq. They had their own perspectives on how the team should play, and because they were so different, that led to feuds, and that led to them having issues with each other, and that ultimately also led to having on-court and more off-the-court issues. And just considering Kobe's future, whether that's in Los Angeles or not, if Shaq stays, then keeping them two together could have, like I said before, prompted Kobe to ask for a trade, and it could have really put the Lakers' future up for grabs, because we don't know what happens in 2009 and 2010 if they win those titles, because Kobe's not there anymore. And then even furthermore, you have to look at the feuds that would continue to happen if they had stayed together, because there's no questioning that these two would have continued feuding, because just because you decide to meet ends just for the sake of the team's success, even though and looking back on how you were able to three-peat, there's no doubt that these two would have continued feuding regardless, because of their egos and just the way they approached the game. And it most likely would have gotten to the point where court success was the only tie between these two players. And this could have even created an issue where the surrounding assets around them two are not as good as they should be, because they're dealing with these two, and their issues, and how that translates to the court. And it just would have had them complaining to maybe even want out of the team, because they don't want to be in an atmosphere in which they're in a situation where they're just dealing with this kind of drama 24/7. Now, let's turn into their sit-down that they had in 2018. In this sit-down, I'm going to mention just a few key points that were mentioned in it, and some major ones to me. And that Kobe mentions in this interview that he wanted the best out of his teammates, and that's important because this is kind of like the contrast between him and Shaq in terms of what they both valued in terms of their perspective on the team and how they viewed success and winning. Where Shaq, on the other hand, was more driven on to reflecting the game, the pace of the game, and the play style revolving around him. And this eventually led to the defeat for them in the 2004 NBA Finals, where they were attempting to go for their fourth straight NBA Finals appearance. But unfortunately, that didn't occur because the Pistons focused on more of making sure they would play a more up-front off defense, where they're pushing players up and forcing Shaq to play up. And it just affects not only the players trying to get the ball to Shaq, but Shaq, where he can't play his game to his best potential. And it's funny because then they look back on it, and they each talk about how simple it was and how disappointed they were. They didn't realize if they just met ends and understood each other, and as a team just figured out that there was a simple solution in trying to beat that defensive play style. And lastly, Shaq was more concerned, and the ultimate idea here was that Shaq was more concerned about whose team it was, whereas Kobe was just strictly there for winning. He didn't care what was the situation. He just really wanted to win, and that was very similar to Jordan, where Shaq was more concerned about whose team it is, and was even mentioning in the interview whose team it was at the time and how he felt about that kind of conversation, where Kobe kind of just steps in and says that he doesn't simply care about that, and all he really cared about, he didn't know how he felt about it, but all he knew is he just wanted to win, and he made it really clear to Shaq that that's what they wanted. So they ultimately talk about that they could have probably met ends, but at the time I felt like it was just best for them because Kobe was young, and Shaq was still relatively young. He was just old, kind of full of himself. They were both full of themselves in terms of their egos and just their winning, ambitions, and whether that was with each other or not, they didn't care. They just really wanted to win, and that competitive drive between each other always lasted with each other, regardless if that was on the court or just after retirement. But no matter what, these two always had a bond with each other in terms of being competitive and having such a unstoppable duo, and just having a great experience as one of the best dynasties of all time. To wrap things all together, I feel that the future complications that could have arrived with their competitive spirits is what ultimately is the setting factor for me not thinking that these two and bringing them and trying to amend their feuds would have been best at the time, because simply they're just competitive spirits, and how they felt about the game, and Shaq being very more self-centered and wanting the game to go through him because he knew how dominant he was, but he didn't exactly know that how he would respond when teams were taking that out, and the team in general couldn't do anything about it because they were just trying to get through Shaq, because that's all they knew. I mean, they had Kobe, and Kobe was a great scorer, but outside of that, they had Shaq, and Shaq was really good at what he did. But when the Pistons did what they did, and it's a bit surprising to me, especially when they had Ben Wallace on Shaq, and that's not really a very easy matchup, but just because of how effective their defense was, it was just ultimately unstoppable for them, and it just led to the Pistons winning, and ultimately kind of drive these two together to the point where it just created such tension to the relationship. And I think that there's also concerns for their careers in general, especially Kobe's, as I don't know where he would have ended. I mean, it's actually instead that during that interview that he had with Shaq, that he was considering buying houses in Chicago. He was already kind of looking there because he felt that he was going to be traded. He thought he was going to be the one traded because they knew that one of them was going to get traded eventually, but they didn't know who it was going to be. And that is why I feel like these two, if they were brought together, I just don't think it would have been good for themselves, but also the Lakers franchise, as you don't have those two titles most likely if you send out Kobe, or if you bring them together, maybe the feuds are to the point where Kobe wants out, and you can move Kobe because Kobe was still good at that time in 2008, and furthermore, he had some MVP caliber seasons, especially like in 2006 and 2005, especially 06, those years where he only he averaged like 30 points a game, and even more than that. And with that being said, that will be at the end of today's video, talking about just a little bit different, switching it up, talking about how I feel that possibly bringing Shaq and Kobe together and fixing that feud would have ultimately just driven them farther apart, and that could have just been more detrimental to themselves and their careers, and also the Lakers and even the Heat's franchise. So with that being said, thank you so much for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to subscribe and leave a like on the video, and even comment below any suggestions for future videos, or just reflecting on the video. And yeah, thank you for watching, and have a great day.